Every accountancy practice should be paperless. There is no reason for you to have paper. Being an entrepreneur is a risk. It's all about risk and reward. So rule number one, be different. How do you be different? Either target a certain industry or a business at a certain life cycle or a particular service, but do something different for a particular group of people. If you truly want to build a business that you're proud of, that gives you the freedom that you wanted when you first set up your business, you need to...
Hey guys, and welcome to the second episode of Habibis and Numbers. I'm here today with another really well-known personality from the UK accounting space and now going international, Mr. Reza Huda. Reza, welcome to the show.
Ayman, always a pleasure to be here.
Good to have you, man. I know it's the last time you were here, I actually jumped on your podcast.
We did role reversal now, isn't it?
yeah, so we're flipping the script now.
Absolutely.
My turn to interrogate you to some extent, but I'll go easy on you.
Absolutely.
So welcome back to Dubai. What brings you back here?
So it's just a flying visit, actually. I've just flown in yesterday for 24 hours to do exactly this, to record some podcasts. I did a couple yesterday and doing a couple today before I fly back out. I've actually been in Doha for the last 10 days, sorting out, again, a setup of a company there and residency for Qatar. So we've already got a presence in Dubai, Capture Accounting in Dubai, and now I've just set up Capture in Qatar to see what we could do with that over there. So yeah, that's my purpose for the
Amazing, man. Good to have you back as always. So last time when I was on your podcast, we obviously talked about moving to Dubai. We're going to change it a little bit here. So today we'll touch on that a little bit, kind of moving to the region and why businesses are moving out here. Primarily though, we're like the digital accounting podcast. We're really interested in your journey as an accountant, what made you get into the industry, how you've ended up having multiple practices and what made you take those decisions along the way.
Okay.
We're also going to be touching on how the role of technology throughout, because we wouldn't be the digital accounting podcast for the Middle East if we didn't do that. So let's start with your journey. So you started many years back in industry, I understand, rather than in accounting practice. Is that right?
No, I started in practice, actually.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah. No, I started at PwC, Big Four. So university, got a job at PwC. I actually fell into accountancy. It's not something that I planned to do. I had two job offers at the time. I had an offer from PwC and I had an offer from Renault, the car company, because my degree was international business and French. So I'd spent a year in France learning French, and therefore I was quite fluent at the time. And I thought, well, it'll be a waste to lose that. So I applied for a lot of roles like Renault, Peugeot, anything that would give me the opportunity to continue that, go and work in France. So that was kind of a crossroads to say, do I continue that path, join a grad program and work in a French country, or do I take this offer from PwC because it gives me an opportunity to become a chartered accountant, have another qualification under my belt, and then everyone was saying, then you can just go on to doing whatever you want afterwards.
Okay, so
talked to a few people and obviously opted for the latter.
Yeah, and how's the French now then?
French is quite rusty, actually.
Yeah, 𝐓𝐡𝐞 𝐅𝐵.
It's a bit more than that.
Yeah.
But, every time, even in Dubai, like last night, we were at a place and there was a Moroccan guy. And so, I was with my father-in-law and he's like, my son-in-law speaks French. So I kind of had to then,
roll it out.
start speaking it. It comes back quite quickly. So the speaking's a bit rusty, but I can understand a conversation if people are talking, like I meet people in the elevator, I can tell what they're saying. And if I went back there for a few months, I'm sure I'd pick it up pretty fast.
Yeah, I think languages are like so important. And I remember when I was at school, so I think I had an advantage because I grew up in a bilingual household. So we were raised speaking Arabic at home and we'd learn English outside. So I think it was quite easy for me to pick up like a bit of French when we started learning at school, and like Spanish, I got quite good at that. But I feel in the UK, actually, they don't give that enough importance early on. Like, how did you find that, like learning a language? Was it easy for you? Did you grow up in like a bilingual household as well?
Well, I did. So my mother tongue is Gujarati because we kind of descend from India. So I kind of spoke that growing up, but it's very different to like French or Spanish or something like that. And I wasn't particularly great at... Actually, I got an A star at French GCSE, but you don't need to know much to get an A star at French GCSE. I took it for A level, and that's when the jump was huge. And I was like, oh my God, I don't know what I'm doing. And even when even at A level, I could go to France and hear what people were saying and have no idea what they were saying. It was only until I went for my third year of uni where you had to spend a whole year there and you kind of get immersed in it, where you're hearing it every single day. You're forced to speak it because everyone only speaks French. And I got a place. There was two of my uni mates. We got a flat. There was three of us that were sharing, and I had a room at the back of the apartment. And there was it was in one big building, and there was a window overlooking the terrace of the ground floor apartment. So the family living on the ground floor, and on the ground floor they had a 9-year-old son. So he always in the terrace, and when my window was open, I'd start talking to him. And it's much easier talking to a 9-year-old than it is to an adult, because then you don't have any conscious about what you're saying, whether they're saying it wrong. And kids are fine, they just talk to you anyway.
Yeah.
So I ended up really progressing on my French through talking to this 9-year-old kid, and he used to give me his comic Dragon Ball Z. I used to read those, and that really helped. So. Yeah, that was it. That was fantastic. One of the best years of my life.
I really enjoyed the process of learning. So I remember I learned both French and Spanish at school, but I was enjoying Spanish a bit more. So I'd come home and listen to Spanish music, watch Spanish films, and translate and this kind of thing. So yeah, it was quite fun. And I think you kind of need to immerse yourself to some extent outside of just the school bit.
It's the only way.
It only gets you so far. At the risk of turning into a Duolingo podcast here, just quickly. So you're obviously in the Middle East now, and you're moving potentially making a move to Qatar, whether it's for residency or just for the business. Is Arabic on the cards?
It probably will be. It's something that I've been wanting to do for years, never had the chance. But I think if I did move to the Middle East, it's something that, again, there's a reason to do it. That you can speak Arabic, and then absolutely. So I think I would do it if I did.
Awesome, man. Okay, so you didn't end up getting a job in a French company. You ended up at PwC.
Exactly. So that was 2004-5. I was there for about 5.5 years, got to manager. I always knew that I didn't want to stay as an accountant, and I wanted to set up a business. So between me and other colleagues, a friend of mine at PwC, kind of racking our brains over every lunch and coffee break, what can we do? What business can we set up? Lots of ideas. That brainwave of an idea never came to us. The only thing we had was a shisha cafe. But then the tobacco ban came in 2007 and scuppered that idea. So 2008, one weekend we are visiting my in-laws. I was in Birmingham. They live near Southampton. And my father-in-law ran a practice, very small practice. He'd set it up in the early 80s. He then had other business interests, so he was looking to sell his practice. He was talking to other firms in the area. So we got talking and thought, why don't I buy it? And so one thing led to another. And between me and the friend of mine that were looking at other businesses, we said, we'll buy into the practice. That was all agreed, got a loan, all that sorted. And then my friend backs out at the last minute. So I'm now on my own. And end of January 2008, my wife is pregnant with our first child. We move our life down south. A few weeks later, the world goes into financial meltdown. So I'm the guy who's mortgaged to the hilt, taking a 70% pay cut in earnings and starting a business during the worst financial crisis since the Great Depression. People thought I was crazy, but what was even crazier, how I ran that business in the first 5 years, because I had no idea what I was doing, completely winging it, because I didn't know what I didn't know. Some things that I'd learned from PwC were good, particularly when it comes to technology. So something that PwC had implemented back then, so we're talking 2007, was a DMS, a document management system. So everything was, all emails, paper, everything was then scanned and everything was logged digitally as opposed to paper files, which was quite early for a firm back in 2008. So that was something that I thought, this is how, if I'm running my own business, this is what I want to do. I want to get rid of paper. When I came into the traditional practice, it was all paper. Yeah. Even my father-in-law, the way he would respond to emails, his secretary would print out the email, hand it to him. He would read the email. He would then write down on a piece of paper the reply to that email, hand it back to her. She'd type it out and send it across. So it was that kind of practice, one email address for the whole practice, very much paper-based. So that was my first project. Right, I want to change this. I want to get rid of all this paper. And there's a whole massive room of files and you used to do filing with paper. So I thought, right, I'm going to do this. I think 2010, 2011, we went completely electronic.
Wow.
Paperless in 2011. And I thought that was late, but actually I speak to practices now 10, 11 years later.
That's super
they're still
early.
using paper.
There's still firms now
Really?
with paper all over. I've seen many firms with filing cabinets everywhere still.
Yeah. It's shocking because if it was possible in 2011, it's absolutely possible now. So that's no excuse. Every accountancy practice should be paperless. There is no reason for you to have paper. You don't need wet signatures on anything anymore. So that's kind of level one of digitalization.
Just on that, sorry to interrupt you, but what are the benefits that you've seen as a practice for going paperless? Okay, it sounds good, maybe the environment, space, but like, what difference has it really made to the operations?
Yeah, to be honest, yeah, I mean, environment wasn't on my radar. It was more about, I'm a big proponent of efficiency. I hate when I see things which are inefficient or taking longer than they should. It just bugs me, and I have to kind of eliminate that wastage, or like time wastage in particular. And it was just very clunky. It's just an obvious thing that printing paper, reviewing paper. If someone needs to come down and find something, if it's in a paper file, it's just a waste of time. Everything we do now is electronic, like with 2025. So the ability just to be able to have all client correspondence in one place. So when you are reviewing a file, when you're looking at a client, everything's there. The email sent to the client, the WhatsApps, the text messages, any correspondence related to that client. If it's it should be all in one place for someone to find. Yeah. Because now in an age where, again, remote working is a norm now as well, a hybrid working. Everyone is on a laptop. 15 years ago, perhaps some people weren't, but now everyone is on a laptop working. So you have to make it easy for people to do the work. And if it's not paperless, you're making it harder, which means there's time and efficiency, which means you're going to make less profit ultimately. Yeah.
Well, and what about the argument that you need to keep the records for 7 years or whatever the number is? I'm sure it varies from region to region, but does that still apply?
But it doesn't say you have to keep paper records for 7 years. You have to keep records for 7 years. And if all of that is digital, then that's absolutely fine. We've never had an issue with being paperless. So I think that's just a non-argument, throw out the water.
I agree. Yeah, I just thought we'd clear that one up because surprisingly, it still comes up.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
What, for UK practices? Or?
I've heard. I've obviously been less. Yeah. Like in the last couple of years, I've been here, so I've been less exposed to what's going on in the UK. I remember when I was in the UK, this was like 3-4 years ago, maybe 5 years ago, when I was visiting practices on a regular basis when I was at Xero. It still kind of cropped up like, what about our record keeping? And maybe back then it wasn't as commonly known that it's okay. And perhaps it's a certain demographic of accountant. Yes. Maybe they've been around for a while and this was always a thing. And maybe it's just like, this is what we're comfortable with, and maybe being risk averse, they're just
absolutely.
Felt like a safety net.
It's just thinking that just because things have always been done, that they have to be done that way. But I kind of I like to challenge the status quo.
Yeah. Okay. So that's the paperless argument, I think, well and well made. What else? What was next for you, like priority-wise?
So next, what we did was paperless in 2011, and I think in 2014, I started to hear about Xero and QuickBooks and things like that. And we were using Sage at the time for any clients that we may have been doing bookkeeping for.
Sage 50, was it?
Sage Line 50, yeah.
So it's a
desktop, that was kind of the market leader at the time. And they even had some kind of hybrid remote thing where you could plug in, but they couldn't use it at the same time you were using it. So for our bigger clients, we were using that. And when Xero came along, I thought about it. It was on my radar, but the firms or the people that I saw were using it were a lot smaller. So I kind of dismissed it as, that's only for small firms. It's not going to work for kind of big businesses that we have. But I was wrong. And in 2014, then I started to realize that this is something that's kind of moving. And I thought that we may have been late to the party, that we have been laggards, but actually 2014 was fairly early in terms of making that move to the cloud. So in 2014, I decided this seems to be the way things are going. For any clients that we do bookkeeping for, we are going to move everybody onto Xero and figure things out. And we did, and we started to do that, and then we started to see the benefits of that. And in fact, there was one turning point which I mentioned when I'm talking to accountants in terms of where the value is now for us to kind of manage that finance function. It was a year-end meeting with one of our clients, and usual kind of year-end meeting, how things are going, and then after we'd gone through the accounts, he said, by the way, do you know anyone that is looking for a job as a finance manager? I said, no. He goes, well, Sue, she's just handed her notice in. She was their finance manager. She did everything for them. I said, no, I don't know, but you know what? There might be something that we can do. We might be able to help you out here, because there's this new software that we've just taken on that allows us to work in kind of real time with you as well. He said, really? I said, yeah. And he said, well, how much would that cost? I said, well, how much are you paying Sue? He said, well, she's on 35 plus sick, holiday pay, all that kind of stuff. I said, okay, we'll do it for 25. I had no idea whether we have to make it work. I thought for 25 grand, that's a good fee. I said, we'll make it work. And he said, okay, And why wouldn't he? It was a no-brainer for him, right? Because he's comparing the cost of us doing something versus a cost he already knows, and he's saving money at the same time. So I said, yeah, all you got Neil to do is your admin person will just raise the invoices, and we'll take care of the rest. So basically, you just do sales ledger, and we'll do everything else. We'll do your payments, we'll do the book, the bank recs, the management accounts, all that kind of stuff. And initially, it was a learning curve. Like, we had no idea. We had to figure things out, set things up. But then once we got it running, it was smooth running. And that client is still with us today. And obviously there's a lot more efficiencies in the process. And we haven't really looked back. So now, so since then, 2014, took a couple of years to get everybody else on ditch Sage. And then from sort of 2015 onwards, it's been fully cloud. So every client is either on Xero or on QuickBooks. Mainly, we've probably got about 70% Xero and about 30% QuickBooks.
Awesome, man. Yeah, look, and I totally get the argument for cloud, right? When I was at Xero, like, we were living and breathing that argument. Surprisingly to me, I went into quite a large firm over here in the UAE, big global name. And so over here, they don't really have Sage Line 50 to the same extent as what they have Tally, which is an Indian-owned, and lots of Indian-owned practices and Indian accountants would have studied Tally as part of their accounting qualifications, in the same way that in the UK, accountants would have studied Sage Line 50, right? Now, the arguments that they were putting forward as to why desktop software is better is things like it's in-house, it's not out there in the cloud somewhere where we don't have control over. All our staff know all the shortcuts so that they're super quick at it. What other reason? What's your argument for cloud above and beyond that? So we talked about being able to use it from anywhere in real time.
Yeah.
Are there other benefits that you guys have seen? Because I really want to kind of dispel this myth that I'm really surprised still exists, that desktop software is still safer, better. Why cloud?
Yeah. So I think the security is a non-argument, because nowadays, the level of security that the likes of Xero, etc., have are on a par with your desktop software. So, and I think in 2025, like, we use cloud-based software for a lot of things. Like, everything we do is kind of on the cloud. I'm sure people use Google Drive, and they're using Dropbox, and we're using Office 365, and they're using Gmail. So we're already working on the cloud. So there should be no reticence in this day and age to say, just because it's a cloud, we're not using it. In terms of the team, the shortcuts, stuff like that, they'll quickly learn something else, because there's a far more efficiencies that you can gain working in a cloud-based software, which has the ability to act as your kind of central ecosystem, and then have other apps plugging in to do lots of other things that will make life easier for you, make you more efficient, help you do things a lot faster than you can otherwise do, ultimately leading to you efficiencies and then making more profit. So there's many advantages on that side of things. And in the way, really, for an accountancy practice, if you want to grow, you want to make more profit, ultimately it's about attracting good talent. And part of that is maybe not so much here, because I know here it's still quite traditional, people come to the office and that kind of thing. But certainly in the UK, there are two big problems that most firms have. One is, how do we win new business? And two is, how do we acquire good talent? How do we get good people? Good people want to be able to have that independence to work from wherever they want, to be able to have at least hybrid working as part of the arrangement. So if you don't have cloud, that's going to be very difficult for you to do. So then what you're doing is there is an impediment in terms of you being able to attract good talent, because if you require everyone to come to the office all the time, that is going to affect your ability to get the best talent available in the marketplace. And that will ultimately affect your ability to build and scale the kind of firm that you want.
Yeah, and actually I do hear this on the ground here quite a lot. So despite the significant number of people interested in working in the market here, there is an abundance of people looking for work. And there's no shortage, I would say, of like technical skills, but I'm sure technical skills alone don't necessarily make a great employee.
Absolutely.
I think there's often a shortage of the soft skills in people, and I think many people in the market here have been conditioned to this kind of yes man mentality. It's like, say yes sir, yes ma'am, do as I say, don't think outside the box, don't challenge me. That kind of culture, What does it do to a firm?
It just means that if you are at the helm and you're running that firm and you have all the client relationships and you're the one who's signing off every email and every letter and every piece of correspondence, ultimately you're not going to be able to get what you wanted out of having that business in the first place. So most people, if it's your own firm, you want to be able to have the business as the vehicle to give you what you want in life. And usually that's some sort of freedom, money freedom, time freedom, financial freedom. If you're the one having all those client relationships, if you're the one who is the one in control, then it's a glorified job. You're the bottleneck. And you're never going to be able to kind of build a business that can operate without you to scale if you don't let go and allow your team to flourish, to have those client relationships, to be able to add value to clients, to get that recognition from clients. It's all going to be on you. Then you don't have a business. You have a glorified job. So, and if you're fine with that, then okay. But if you truly want to grow something special and great and that can operate independently without you, then you have to be able to create that culture which attracts the best talent, retains the high performers, maximizes everyone's potential. And part of that is keeping up with the latest technology and creating that environment that is inviting and enticing and that is exciting for youngsters to be working in that environment, because that's what they're used to. They're used to being on their phones all the time, Gen Z or whatever, and they're au fait with all these products. And then when they come into work for you, they take them back to a way of working which was kind of in the last century.
Yeah.
There's a disconnect between that.
For sure. And I think it's a real shame that in this day and age, that kind of inhibitive culture, it still exists. I genuinely feel there needs to be psychological safety in the workplace to feel that you can challenge the way things go.
Definitely.
Without fear of kind of reprisals or whatever it might be, right? So, yeah, I'm really for individuals at any level of an organization feeling that they can speak up. And I personally, when I'm looking to hire, will look for that in a person. I won't look for someone that's just going to be kind of go with the flow necessarily and just do exactly what I say without questioning it. I actually want people that are prepared to challenge me.
Absolutely.
Because I don't want to be the only source of creativity in the business. There's going to come a day when maybe I'll get bored of doing exactly what I'm doing now. Early on in a business, naturally you have to wear lots of hats. I think that would exhaust me over the years if I had to keep doing that. I feel that most business owners, as you say, want to achieve some level of freedom. Today, I don't see a significant number of practice owners, firm partners that are really achieving that. And they are still very much ingrained in the day-to-day running of an operation. I mean, let's take yourself as an example. You're able to often make trips overseas. Like, does your business not function when you're not around?
It functions perfectly well without me. And that's the way I wanted it to be. But we were talking about this earlier in the podcast I was on, there is a lot of, and I get it, there is some fear in the owners to say, well, if I let go of client relationships and my team members build that up, and won't they just run away with the clients, and then, I'll lose out. Being a business is a risk. Being an entrepreneur is a risk. It's all about risk and reward. There is a risk of that happening, absolutely. I'm not going to say there's no risk, but there's also a risk of you not doing so and staying in the same position and not able to grow and not able to fulfill your dreams and build that business that makes you proud, that ultimately gives you the life that you want. So everything is a risk. It's your choice which one to take.
Yeah.
And in my view, kind of that risk is worth it in terms of being able to attract the best talent, being able to create a culture and a vision also that your vision is big enough to incorporate other people's goals and visions. So it's just about becoming and again, this is the process of a business owner that I've been through, that I had no idea what I was doing. And then I realized there's a whole world out there of people that have been there and done it. They've built, businesses worth tens of millions. And now in this day and age where they're sharing everything, they're sharing their journey of what they did, how they do it. The information is there and the proof is there. It's no longer hidden away or in books. There's YouTube, there's podcasts. You can go and listen to people who have scaled big accounting firms or other businesses and have shown what they've done, the mistakes they've made along the way, so you don't. So there's no excuse now that I don't know what to do. It's all out there. And really, my best advice to anyone is to invest in yourself to become a better business owner And that ultimately means you'll do the best for your team, your clients, and your family. And usually that means learning the business skills that you're not taught when you do your accountancy training.
Yeah.
You're not taught how to price your services. You're not taught how to sell. You're not taught how to lead and manage a team. So you need to go out and learn, okay, well, what is marketing? What is sales? How do I become a better leader? And learn, and then apply that. And that's what you should be doing as a business owner, not the accounting work. Get the accountants in to do the accounting work. You focus on the business skills that are required for you to grow and scale your business to whatever it is that you want it to be.
I think that's great advice, and I think hopefully serves as a wake-up call for many out there that perhaps haven't been able to get out of this rut that they're stuck in. And I know people feel that there is a better way out there, but often it's difficult to take that step to recognize it. It probably takes a certain level of self-awareness. So I think what most people need to do is probably just reflect on their business, their role in the business, and does that look like what they want it to look like, right? And if not, what are the steps to take them there?
Yeah.
So you probably come across lots of accountants, right? And I actually really enjoy your content, be it on LinkedIn, be it on YouTube, where you're offering advice to people. Now, you also run an accountants community. What's that about? Why did you do that? And what kind of themes do you see crop up regularly? Are there like some key themes that crop up, and what advice, how do you normally address those?
Yeah, absolutely. Good question. So up to about 2014, I started my journey of transformation. I came across a mentor. I joined a mentoring program. I started to learn about pricing and made changes and saw results. And between 2014 and 2018, everything transformed. Like the practice transformed. I transformed, and we'd gone from I working crazy hours in 2014 and not really having much profitability to getting to like a near 7-figure firm in 2018 on 10 hours a week and 50% net profit margins with just 7 people. And then so I was still part of this mentoring program with my mentor, and he saw the stuff that I was doing. He'd left his practice or sold it like 20 years back. So he said, oh, can you come and share some of the stuff that you're doing, how you're applying the stuff I'm teaching you in practice to my audience, and I'll pay you for it. So I said, yeah, sure. So I did one session. It went down really well with the audience. Then he invited me back and he said, let's do this on a monthly basis. I'll pay you, and you can also build up your business on the side. So, for 2019, I started doing that, and then it forced me to go and learn about online marketing. How do you build a coaching business? How do you build a personal brand? What do you need to do? So I quite enjoyed that side of things, whilst because the firm is kind of running mostly without me. I'm not spending much time in the practice, so I had time to do other things. And that started to go really well in 2020. In lockdown, it kind of boomed because everyone was inside and watching webinars, and that's how I was kind of teaching. So 2020 boomed, and then it got to a point end of 2020, early 21, where my mentor and I had a chat, and we're like, oh, we've got competing businesses now, so we need to call it a day. So amicably, we parted ways, and I stopped doing stuff for him and just continued to grow my community, which is now called the PAC, the Profitable Accountants Community. So in that, it's about 150 plus members. But essentially, the main challenges I come across from firm owners is, how do we win new clients? That's usually number one. The second is, how do we attract talent? And the third is, how do we price our services? So yeah, we can talk about each of those in turn. But the new clients bit is a big one, because that is ultimately, and that should be where you focus, because that is ultimately the big domino. That this is the one big problem that most firms have. If you can crack that, if you have a steady stream of leads coming to you every single month, and you're going to be converting X amount of new business every single month, then all your other problems go away. So most firm owners struggling with cash flow, struggling with profitability, struggling with planning when to hire, struggling with capacity issues, not working too many hours. You knock down that one big domino of getting new business in, all other problems fall away. Because we have one of the best business models out there. We have something that is a legal requirement for most business owners. They have to do accounts, they have to do tax returns. When we get a client, they stay with us for years, provided we don't make a complete pig's ear of it, which means we've got incredible lifetime values. And that is the envy of a lot of other professional services, like say lawyers or others. And that's why PE and venture capitalists are all over accountancy firms doing roll-ups, because they appreciate the power of this business model. Problem is, most accountants are technicians and they don't.
Yeah.
It's like if you're a marketer and you look at an accountancy firm, you'd be salivating because you've got this like huge lifetime value. I mean, I'll give you an example. Our firm's been running since 1982. What's that, 44 years? There are some clients that have been with us since that day.
Wow.
1982. So the lifetime value of some clients, I've done a report on QuickBooks, it's like over £1 million. So if you say to a marketer, my lifetime value is £1 million, they're like, wow, that means you can spend up to like £900,000 or more to acquire a customer and you'll still be profitable. Like, that's unheard of. You never do that. But accountants, they don't want to spend any money on marketing or any time on marketing because, they're not seeing that connection in terms of cost of acquisition versus lifetime. Your lifetime value is huge. So you can afford to spend a lot of money and time on marketing because the result that you're going to get is massive. We're not a transactional business.
Yeah.
We have huge lifetime values. And that's why that one focus will knock down a lot of other problems for you.
And I've seen that so often whereby accounting firms really don't tend to market themselves particularly well. And when they do have a go at marketing, they will perhaps get someone quite junior to do social media in their business. And it's just like posting stuff from the company page. Mm-hmm. And it just blends in. What does effective marketing look like? I think you do it really well. So from what I see, you've really leveraged your personal brand as a means to promote your businesses and to get knowledge out there, I guess, establish yourself as a thought leader. What made you take that decision specifically? Is that intentional or is it just like accidental? Or is it because you love the limelight? While you're on all these podcasts?
No, not quite. It's just through a process of learning. So me learning about marketing, like reading the books, understanding what is marketing, learning from the marketers, going on the coaching programs, paying for the courses, going on the masterminds, learning from some of the best marketers and business people on the planet. And there was a common theme that was occurring when I realized there's this whole world out there that I never knew existed, was that when you're trying to appeal to everyone, you appeal to no one. Marketing is about finding that person who has a specific need or problem to know, like, and trust you. How can you know what someone's problem is if you don't know who they are? So the first step is really identifying who is your target audience, who is your ideal client. And not every small business owner in the country is your ideal client. You really need to hone in, because if you don't, then you just blend into that sea of sameness like every other accountant. And if there is nothing to differentiate you from the accountant down the road, the only thing differentiating you is price.
Yeah.
Never a good thing, because then it's always a race to the bottom. So if you're an accountant and you're listening to this and you're thinking, clients are like quibbling on my fees and trying to get a discount and playing me off against another accountant, it's because you've done nothing to differentiate yourself. When you do that, then it's no surprise that clients are doing that because they can't see you as different. So rule number one, be different. How do you be different? You specialize in a certain area, either target a certain industry or a business at a certain life cycle or a particular service, but do something different for a particular group of people.
The big question here is, but Reza, aren't I limiting my market by doing this?
Absolutely, yeah. I love the variety. I love working with lots of different clients. Yeah. I got the same. The reason why you're overworked and underpaid, not making the profit you want, is exactly because you're working with 57 different industries. So when you have clients that are in construction and you're dealing with CIS and exemptions, and then you've got people in property who are asking questions about buy-to-lets, and you've got doctors and dentists asking about superannuation, and you've got content creators asking about EOVT and digital suppliers, and you've got car dealers talking to you about margin schemes, you are stretched, which means that you are that's inefficiency. Because you can never become a master of one. You become a jack of all trades and a master of none. And then you're passed from pillar to post. Everything takes more time, and therefore you become inefficient. Whereas if you just chose one sector, you can become the expert. You go narrow and you go deep. Inch wide, mile deep. You become an expert, your team become experts. You know all the questions they're going to ask you, all the tax questions. You know exactly how to set up the bookkeeping, because it's now become uniform. You're getting the same clients in. The chart of accounts, the tax returns, everything becomes uniform. You have the answers at the tip of your tongue. You know you learn new things about that particular sector, which then make it easier for you to market because you're hearing what the problems are, the questions are, and they can use that same content to go out and get more of those clients.
Yeah.
Everything becomes easier. So I was preaching this for a long time because I knew I was teaching accountants how to market, and I did it with my firm in 2016 when I was learning from my mentor. The first niche was property. I chose property because we had a few clients, and it took me a while to figure this out. Like I knew I had to do it, but I didn't know what, because we had everything. We had a mixed bag: care homes, properties, stamp dealers, chiropractors, doctors, dentists. Eventually chose property because I was just starting my journey of buy-to-let. I quite enjoyed the clients that we have in that sector. So I niched down into property. I wrote a book, put it on Amazon. I did a few YouTube videos. I started to put blog posts out there. And lo and behold, I started to receive inbound inquiries, and really good ones. And then people who had never before referred me work, like bankers and solicitors, started to refer me work because I said I was the property tax accountant as opposed to just another accountant, because they have lots of accountants asking them for work and never gave me work before because I was just another accountant. But when I gave them a book and said, look, here's something I've written for property owners, any investors, give it to them and send them my way, work started to come in. And I could charge a premium because I was now the expert. I was the specialist. And specialists charge a premium. Who charges more, GP or brain surgeon? So the beauty about becoming a specialist is you're positioned as an expert, meaning that you can charge a higher price. Pricing is directly linked to positioning. The better positioned you are, so your designer brands, they're highly positioned in the marketplace, and therefore they can charge a premium. The beauty about then specializing in one sector, as opposed to trying to be all things to all people, is that your team can then handle more clients per team member because it's the same sort of stuff. So your team become efficient. What happens there is you're getting more in at the top end. It's costing you less, or the rate at which you have to take on cost slows down, meaning that gap is a nice, lovely, healthy profit. And that, in a nutshell, simplistically, is the business model of an accounting firm. If once that penny drops, and that's why I wrote the 4 pillars, it's all about positioning and pricing at the top end, process and people on the other end. Get that right, and you can build and grow and scale any size accounting firm that you please.
That's awesome advice, and I totally recommend people to read the 4 Pillars book. And you haven't set me up for this, but genuinely, I did read it. So I'm not even an accountant, right? And I remember when you first published it and started promoting it on LinkedIn, I was like, hey, this will actually really help me as someone that works with accountants regularly to empathize and to understand what good can look like. I think the book's written really, really well, really clear. I think it doesn't overcomplicate things, and it gives really practical steps. So I would recommend anyone out there to take a look at the 4 Pillars. It's fantastic. Okay, so niching down.
Yeah, niching down might be worth talking about. So 2016 I did that. 2019 I start coaching accountants, and I keep hearing the same things. I ran a couple of courses on how to help them win new clients. And then in 2021, I'm still hearing the same. And then I hear some people's objections are like, oh, it's easy for you. You've got a practice, established practice. It's easy for you to do this, but it's not for us. So I said, okay, let me do something different, something wild. And what I'll do is I will, rather than just teach you this stuff again, I will do it with you. I'm going to launch a brand new firm with a new name, a new logo, a new audience, and everything that I have been teaching you, I will share with you in real time and do it with you. And the promise of the course that I was starting in February 2021 was power positioning 0 to 100K in 12 months. So if I didn't get there ourselves, it would be serious egg on my face. Yeah. So that was when 𝐓𝐡 Accounting was born. And that was a brand, again, just a brand, no separate company, nothing, just a separate brand with a new logo, new website, new audience, targeted specifically for content creators and influencers. So 𝐓𝐡 Accounting, accountants for content creators and influencers. Again, just practicing what I'm preaching, targeting down, niching down to one particular area. For anyone who's thinking, oh, but you must have had loads of content creators to do that at the time, we had the grand total of 1. We had 1 client in that space in 2019, 2020, whatever it was. But we'd worked with them for 18 months. So there was a lot of things that we had learned about EU VAT on digital supplies and how creator income works and where everything comes from and how to set up the bookkeeping, how to pull the reports from Stripe and whatnot in the right place and from his app that he was getting income from. So we'd learned a lot. But the beauty about knowledge is that once you learn it, it stays with you. It doesn't go anywhere. So capitalize on that. That when the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th client comes along, it's a lot easier because we've done it once and we've done it on a deeper level. And therefore, if that knowledge compounds, your efficiencies then just get greater and greater as you're doing it for the fourth, fifth, sixth client that come along.
Yeah.
Everything that you're learning now becomes more valuable to your prospects because you're putting stuff out there which ordinary accountants aren't, because they can't be all, they can't do everything for every single sector, and therefore their content just gets merged into one, whereas you're just speaking to a specific target audience. And when you do that, it's much easier for you to attract clients because you're now calling out those people. And people want to work with specialists. People want to work with people who understand their business. Now, we have literally every single new call that's booked with us, we ask a simple question: what motivates you to reach out? And 90% of them will say, I'm looking for a specialist accountant. My accountant doesn't understand my industry.
Yeah.
I want to work with someone where I don't have to explain my business to them over and over again. It's a common theme. This is what prospects are telling you. Listen to your prospects. Listen to what they have to say and do something about it. So now going back to the story of Capture Accounting, 0 to 100K in 12 months. If we didn't get there ourselves, zero saying on my face, we got there in 9. And now that's the fastest growing brand in our practice. So much so that that's led to us setting up a business in Dubai and in Qatar, because again, the Dubai thing came out because our creators were wanting to move to Dubai. Initially, we passed them off to third parties. And then we saw that was happening more and more. So we thought, oh, why not do this ourselves? Came and saw how do we do it ourselves, set up, and now we can do that whole service because clients want a one-stop shop. They don't want to have to deal with multiple parties. So we can set up business in UK and Dubai, do the formations, do the VAT, bookkeeping accounts in Dubai as well. And clients only have to deal with us as one contact for both the UK and Dubai operation. So I can't emphasize that enough. Go deep, go narrow and go deep, inch wide, mile deep, and you won't look back. It's the best thing we ever did.
I think you've articulated really well, because so many people do have that fear that, hey, I'm narrowing my market, I'm limiting myself. I mean, we at 𝐓𝐡𝐞, so obviously we work with accounting firms primarily. We can deal with SMEs,
Exactly.
but we primarily position ourselves as the go-to tech partners for accountants.
Exactly.
And often when new clients come to us, and I've taken a content-led approach in much of the same way that you have, right? So using my personal brand on LinkedIn, talking about this area, particularly in the market in the Middle East here, and what good looks like and what software's out there, etc. And people have just been coming to us saying, hey, particularly firms, let's say from the UK, they're attracted to the market for the same reason that many of your clients will be attracted to setting up over here. And they say to us, I don't want the headache. Like, you guys are there, you're an expert. We would rather just go with your recommendation.
Exactly.
And so I totally get exactly what you're saying there. Like, positioning yourself as an expert in a space
Absolutely.
is a self-fulfilling prophecy in many ways.
Definitely. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. Let's get into technology a little bit more. So you adopted Xero and QuickBooks relatively early on, I would say, even by UK standards, because the UK, I would say, is ahead of a market like the UAE in terms of adoption of cloud accounting, largely driven by making tax digital, which was a government initiative that
Correct.
in 2018 meant that anyone that was VAT registered had to file their VAT returns via accounting software, right? And for most people, it didn't make sense just to upgrade their desktop software to an MTD compliant version, although that was an option. You also had this like bridging software spreadsheets thing available. But I think the majority of businesses chose to go down the cloud accounting route. So that really increased adoption. And I think today there's like a real wealth of, say, accounting tech events.
Absolutely.
And a real awareness of what else is out there. So, but we don't quite have that here. I would say the market is probably 5, 6, 7 years maybe behind the UK in terms of overall adoption of cloud accounting. And where it has been adopted, I would say it's almost done in a tick box manner. So they can almost say, hey, we're using Zoho, we're using Xero, we're using QuickBooks, we're using Wafik, whatever it might be. But they're still working in a traditional accounting way.
Yeah.
Beyond just doing the bookkeeping, what does a digital accounting workflow look like for you guys? And what other apps are like key for your practice or for your clients that you're seeing to help automate, let's say, that accounting workflow?
Yeah, good question. I'll try and remember what we use because I'm not really involved in the day-to-day.
Without the name, it doesn't necessarily need to be the names. I guess what categories of like application do you think are particularly useful for a firm these days?
Sure. Okay. So I'd say that if I were to, so my process pillar in the book, I basically broke down into 3 main areas where you need some sort of technology. One is like what I call the factory. Now, we essentially operate a digital factory. We get stuff in from clients, we do something with it, and it goes out the other end to the tax authorities for submission, etc. So just like in a traditional factory making cars, we need to have a process in place that lets us know, right, what jobs are in, what client is it related to, what stage is at, where are the deadlines, and be able to then manage and prioritize the production of work in our digital factories. So you need to have a piece of software where anyone can see at any time the status of any job, and they can go and easily update the status of any job at any one particular time. And if you don't, then that's highly inefficient. I know some firms still do it with spreadsheets or maybe even manual T cards that they used to use, that we used to use like 20 years ago. But that is level 1 again of automation in terms of get a workflow process for your factory. Process 101. Then you need something for your metaphorical office. So everything that involves client correspondence, be it sort of invoicing or emails or getting information from clients. Again, you want that centralized in one place for efficiency. You don't want to have, say, emails on people's inboxes where somebody goes away and there's lots of client correspondence, or they leave and you don't know what's gone on because it's just on someone's desktop somewhere and you have zero visibility of it. And particularly now when we're working, there's multiple people working on the same job, the same client, having that visibility, again, makes things easier, makes things more efficient for you because you know everything is saved in one place. And nowadays there are a whole host of practice management solutions that give you the ability to have that email and document management system in place, which stores everything from a client email, WhatsApp, message, scanned document into one place, which is necessary for that visibility, and they have all invoices, everything is all stored for the client in one place. And then on the top of that, which a lot of firms ignore, but that I call the brains of the practice, and that is how we do things here. We will have different ways of doing things. And your unique value proposition, your secret sauce in terms of the years of experience that you have and how to cut through a set of accounts or how to, do something in a way in the most efficient manner, that's in your head and it's in your team's head. How do you get that out of your head and your team's head, past, present, and future? That will determine how efficient you are and how profitable you are. That is essentially it's the capturing and sharing of the intellectual capital or the knowledge that you have in your head, your team's head, past, present, and future, which will ultimately lead to efficiency. So the way that pans out in practice is, so we, for example, have, is your process notes. It's putting something into a knowledge base or a knowledge hub that allows people to capture what they're learning, how they're working smarter, the best way of doing things. When new people join, they have their ways of doing things, but it might be not as efficient as your way. Yep. So how do you get them working to standardized working patterns, and that constantly evolving as well? But there are tools available either in your practice management, or we use Notion and Loom. So you record a process, you put it in Loom, you have your steps. There are so many tools out there that allow you to do this, but kind of building up that knowledge bank. And that is highly valuable. And that's the secret to efficiency. Not clocking hours on a timesheet and seeing where some things you 1 or 2 hours. It's actually capturing and sharing that intellectual capital that you have in your head and your team's heads.
That's awesome advice. Yeah. And I think if people just did those 3 things right, even just one of them, I'm convinced, and I've seen it before, I'm convinced that they will see significant changes to their practice, and it becomes somewhat addictive, kind of putting these things in place, right? And I think as you implement these things, you are able to start taking a step back from the business and take that helicopter view. We are running out of time, but I wanted to get into timesheets, etc. But I just got very briefly, I've got the killer question, I guess. What is one, and I haven't set you up for this, so apologies for putting you on the spot. What is one harsh truth that you think accountants out there need to hear? Practice owners, maybe we'll aim it at them. What's one harsh truth that you see that you think maybe is inhibiting their business? We'll wrap up after that.
Wow. Yeah, that's a big one. There's quite a few, but if I were to say that if you're the practice owner and you still feel that it's your responsibility to be doing the work, to be involved still in every client relationship, for clients to be emailing you and texting you and phoning you, then ultimately you're still in a glorified job. And you should have just stayed where you were when you were employed. So if you truly want to build a business that you're proud of, that gives you the freedom that you wanted when you first set up your business, you need to get off the tools and start working on your business, meaning invest in yourself to become a better business owner. You're already a good accountant. You're already a good tax advisor. You can hire people to do that stuff for you. If you want to grow something special, start to invest in the business skills required to do that. Leadership skills, sales skills, marketing skills. And that will then move you from being that technical accountant to the entrepreneur that you want to be, if you want to be.
I will summarize that in one sentence. I'll try to, without butchering it. So essentially what we're saying is, Habibi, you're a glorified employee, not a business owner. Okay, and on that bombshell, we will wrap it up. So thanks very much, Reza. It's been really, really insightful talking to you. Pleasure as always. And that's the end of this second episode. Hopefully you found Reza's insights really insightful. I've certainly learned a lot. And stay tuned for next time. If you want to find out more about Reza and what he's doing, I really recommend you check out his community, which is called
The Profitable Accountants
The
Community.
Profitable Accountants Community. And I definitely recommend you check out his book, The 4 Pillars. Thanks again, guys. Till next time, Habibis. Bye now.